So I made a shit ton of videos yesterday, and as such, my notifications have blown up, which makes sense. But I have officially started The Words of Radiance. I just finished the prologue, and so it mentioned that Alucard had a wife. Did I misunderstand that? Because that was not mentioned once in the first book, and that seems like it could be kind of important. Strange. She also mentioned that Shadesmar, she saw this shadowy figure and it pulled a sword on her and then was like, sup. She said Shadesmar is the realm of the Spren. Interesting development. So she hired an assassin named Liss, and Liss also has a shard blade, which is cool. The fact that she's an assassin and she cuts out the eyes of her victims to cover her tracks so nobody knows they were killed with the shard blade. Game recognizes game. That's really smart. And the fact that this chapter revolves around the night that Gavilar was assassinated, and she was there at the feast, and Dalinar's there just being a drunken asshole. Interesting. But she saw she saw Zeph kill her dad and then walk away. And then the Parshendi who hired him to do so just walks up to Yasna and is like, sorry for your loss. That was us. What? Who hired them and was also also give yourself there's a big puppet master happening right now that's working and hiring the Parshendi, and I don't like it. Also, I just watched that back. Look at how ridiculous my hair looks. Hold on. So Yasna just said that the Ghostbloods want their Soulcaster back that Shallan broke. What? So her dad was a member of the Ghostbloods? Why? Why did they lend him a Soulcaster? What are they doing on Roshar? What does that mean? Yasna is setting up Shallan to marry Adolin? I like this a lot. Because, in The Way of Kings, the stories are kind of separated. I'm sure they're going to tie in later. But to have this direct correlation, I'm like, okay, this is cool. It's like when Kaladin started getting closer to Dalinar. I was like, okay, cool. I like that a lot. But she mentioned that when a Spren bonds with a human, that's what makes a Radiant? Is that what happened with Syl and Kaladin? That's how he got those powers, is because him and Syl bonded? And in that case, Syl is an honor Spren. Are there different Spren, and they can bond with different people, and then different things happen? Like Green Lantern rings, what if a Death Spren bonds with a human? Is that possible? Do they become like Ghost Rider? How does this work? I love that all of Bridge 4 are getting tattoos for Bridge 4, because they're like, hey, this was our sentence as slaves, but more importantly, it's what brought us together and also what brought us our freedom. I love that. It does suck that Kaladin, because of the Stormlight inside, he can't get a tattoo because it keeps rising the ink out of his body. That's as someone with a bunch of tattoos, that would suck. But also, why can't he heal the brand? Is it because it's a new thing? The tattoo goes on and it just doesn't stick, but the stuff that is on there already is permanent? Is that how that works? Either way, I think it's awesome. Matching tattoos, I'm about it. Oh, and the fact that Shen got one, I feel like is really significant, but I don't know why. It feels like that's a really big deal. The plot continues to thicken. So Yasna is talking to Shallan, and she's explaining that when the Radiants broke their oaths to humanity, a bunch of Spren died. And one of one of Shallan's drawings came to life. And it's kind of dumb, apparently. She called it imbecilic, which is interesting. So when she was drawing the creatures in the back of all those paintings, they're Spren in Shadesmar? Weird. And so, Yasna's explaining that when the Radiants broke their oaths, a lot of Spren died. And she said that she bonded with a Spren forever ago named Ivory. And she's just not telling anybody anything about this. It's very interesting that she also said that their surge binders are like beginning stages of Knight's Radiance, and there's different kinds, and she's like, it depends on what spren you bond with. Very, very interesting. Because Shallan is a soulcaster, Yasna is a soulcaster. Yasna bonded with Ivory, who's a spren, and Shallan just drew a alleged spren, I guess, and it came to life. What is that? Also, the shards of Roshar are honor and cultivation? Okay. Interesting. I gotta be honest, I don't like it. I don't like that shards have names that are just words. Because, especially when I'm listening, it's hard to differentiate between when they're mentioning the word or the being. And that is tripping me up. Also, Yasna said that the Night Watcher is just a really powerful spren? What? This is crazy. So I'm like halfway through chapter 5, and a lot has happened. First off, I love that Dalinar has Navani now for when he's like tripping out in his visions. He's like saying things out loud, and she's like recording them as they go, which makes sense because the epigraphs so far have all been from her journal. So that feels connected. And then he sees 62 days death follows carved into his wall. That can't be good. And Kaladin is a captain now? I love me some Captain Cal. Oh shit. Entirely unrelated. My favorite TV show of all time is Firefly, and the captain is called Mal. Captain Mal? Captain Cal. And Sadeas's wife is like the leader of she's like a spy master, like Varys from Game of Thrones. Honestly, that checks out. That checks out that a snake would also be married to a spider. You know what I'm saying? I do love that Elhokar immediately like looks at Kaladin and is like, I like this guy. And then he finds out he's a captain and he's like, a Dark Eyes is captain? When did that start? It's like, dude, do you like him or not? I do really, really like the back and forth between Kaladin and Dalinar when Kaladin calls him Sir. And he's like, you know, most people call me Bright Lord. And Kaladin's like, every single person I've called Bright Lord has betrayed me. This Sir is much more respectful, I promise you. And Dalinar's like, okay. I just love that everyone's like together and like talking to each other. And like Kaladin and Adolin are not like seeing eye to eye. They're just kind of like looking at each other all suspicious. This is great. I finished chapter 5, and that was amazing. That was awesome. Dalinar, all day, forever. That is my dude. The fact that he wants to rebuild the Knight's Radiant, awesome. Is acting like the king with the king standing next to him, great. And then he told Adolin, like, hey, you want to fight the other High Princes? You can do it now. You're pretty good, right? Let's do it. Like, what? And the fact that he is telling Kaladin, like, hey, eventually I am going to want you protecting the king. This is amazing. The fact that he's like, we're going to rebuild the Knight's Radiant. He says that in front of Kaladin, who he doesn't know is like a pre-Radiant. And Adolin's just like, I'll fight anybody. Let's do this. So that he can get all of the Shard Blades. This is great. I just started chapter 6, and Shallan now has her own spren that she's called Pattern, and Kate Reading is doing a voice that sounds exactly like E.T. for the spren. Good. Shallan, phone home. What? Oh no. Yasna just said that the Voidbringer's return will be told by the Knight's Radiant coming back and new orders coming up. And that is exactly what's happening right now. Oh no! Is Dalinar accidentally going to bring about the Voidbringers and all this stuff, not realizing that by trying to help, he's actually making it worse? Oh man. I'm sorry. Did they just kill Yasna? What? What an insane amount of emotional whiplash. Because the introduction is Navani saying, like, I wasn't prepared for the loss. And I was like, loss? Who would she lose? And then, like, 3 paragraphs later, Shallan walks in and these guys just took out Yasna. And they're like, make sure it's done. And then he stabs her all the way through to the floor with a knife. Holy shit. I did not see that coming at all. Whew. And then Pattern over here being like, you have to fight. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Listen, this is the other thing that with the Spren and Shadesmar and the Cognitive Realm and all of this, this is where I feel so dumb because I understand that this is English this book is written in, but it is not computing. I ran into the same problem when I was going through the Emperor's Soul. When it was like, she's like trying to change the ship. And it's like, well, the ship has thoughts, but it's the thoughts of the people that were on the ship. But the ship can change, but it doesn't want to, but it's gonna. Oh, my God. First, you got the emotional gut punch of like, what is happening? And then we're with Shallan, and we're like, what is happening? And then she's talking to a boat that doesn't want to change to save people while others are being executed. What is happening? Chapter 10. Red Carpet Once White. It's a Shallan flashback, and, well, listen. She's tiny, you know, she's a child, and she wakes up, and there's a bunch of bodies around her, and her dad is like, no, it's okay, and then he, like, wipes her cheek, and it comes back red, and she's surrounded by bodies, and her mom is one of them. Up until this point, I had assumed or been told that her dad was kind of a monster and terrible. And now it says, Father carried Shallan over the body of a woman in blue and gold. Little blood there. It was the man who bled. Mother was face down so Shallan couldn't see the eyes. The horrible eyes. You mean like burned out eyes? Like, did somebody come in and take out Shallan's mom and all these dudes with a shard blade? What is happening here? And also, this chapter is like 1 page. And just how... okay, this is ruining everything that I thought prior to this point. What is going on? You know what else? Pattern sounds like E.T. or the aliens from Toy Story. Shallan, the claw! I am turnt right now. What? Like, in the back of my mind, I was always like, yeah, I wonder whatever happened to Amaram. But the fact that he's like, oh, hey, what's up, pal? How you been? What? You know what? I hope what's about to happen goes something like this. Oh, hey, Dalinar. It's nice to see you. Been a long time. Oh, yeah, Amaram. How have things been? Oh, cool. You got a shard blade. Nice. Oh, Kaladin. Why are you looking at Amaram like that? He did this, and also killed my friends, and is kind of the worst. I mean, what are you gonna do, huh? Ow! Okay, so the Parshmen are the slaves in the Alethi kind of society, but the Parshendi are the warriors. They're like cousins of the Parshmen that they're currently fighting, that put out the hit to have Gavilar assassinated. Okay. And the Parshendi Shardbearer is a woman? That's really cool. And she learned the Alethi language and says she needs to talk to Dalinar? And she's just like waiting for him to pop up again? But then they said that they had Gavilar assassinated because of what he was trying to do. But is Dalinar also trying to do what Gavilar was trying to do? But they want to stop it? But they're the Voidbringers? Oh boy. I do like getting the other perspective of the war, because obviously from the Alethi point of view, the Parshendi are, you know, these like barbaric warriors that have a weird language. But then you get to see it from their point of view, and they're like, yeah, just going about, you know, they got friends, they're fighting a war that they don't want to be fighting, you know, it's just very interesting. To be completely idea. Like, I know that Gavilar was reading The Way of Kings, and he was pretty into it, in the same way now Dalinar is reading The Way of Kings and is way into it. But Dalinar is having these visions, and they're saying to unite them all. And, now that the Shardbearer can speak Alethi, and she wants to talk to Dalinar, I'm wondering if unite them all isn't necessarily just the High Princes. Like, maybe the Parshendi have some part in this. Maybe they're supposed to unite with the Parshendi? But the Parshendi, or the Parshmen, are the Voidbringers. Wait, how are the Parshendi and the Parshmen separated? Huh. So I just finished the Yin interlude. What was that? First we get, like, this really nice old man who's, like, making shoes for people for free. And there's an 8-year-old kid who's been living on the street for like 3 years already, has an infected cut on his foot, and this old man's like, yeah, I'll make shoes, just, tell me your story. And then he makes shoes for this kid, and then a shard bearer shows up and is like, time to pay the piper, old man. And he runs, and they catch up with him, but he talks about the idea that, like, everyone is experiencing life, and, like, they're all, like, pieces of God, kind of, but not. And then it ends, and he kills him, and it just says, like, experience ended. Are we in a simulation? What was that? So, I just finished the Rissyn interlude. And just a little PSA thing. My ADD has been absolutely awful this week, which is why the updates have been kind of, I guess, a little more sporadic, because I've been trying so hard to ingest this information, and my brain is just rejecting it. But I did get through it, and this interlude was kind of wild, because you have this girl that essentially meets a giant lion turtle from Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is pretty great. I also love that the king in this culture is a woman. Like, the title king is not, like, gendered. I think that's pretty cool. As someone who calls every gender dude, I respect this culture, and I respect their non-gendered term. I'm into that. I'm also into the fact that they're like, yeah, maybe we'll trade with you in a decade. And she's like, I don't think so, and just yeets herself off the side of it and goes face to face with the god. And it's like, hey, I'd like to trade with you, please. And it, like, bites the rope, and she falls and breaks both of her legs. Woo! You gotta respect the commitment. You gotta respect it. But, yeah, we're back in. Onward! So I just finished chapter 13, and Shallan is talking to Pattern, and she's talking about, like, the Voidbringers and all that, and he said Spren. Spren of him. Huh. So the Voidbringers, I'm assuming, the Spren are the Spren of Odium, just random guess, and they mentioned before in one of the interludes that the Parshendi go into the storms and they bond with a Spren. So are the Voidbringers just like Parshmen that bond with, like, evil Spren? Is that what that is? Huh. Also, the fact that Shallan lost all of her stuff and the broken soulcaster in the, like, bottom of the ocean, and now she's just kind of by herself, sort of winging it, headed to the Shattered Plains. Pretty wild. All right, just finished chapter 14, and I'm all in on Adolin. I'm about it. He's very much his father's son. The fact that he does this duel, and him and his brother, I love the relationship between Adolin and Renarin. I gotta say, absolutely love it. And he's like, did you have the chicken for breakfast? Yeah, cool. Did you talk to your sword? I did. Okay, cool. We got this. It's adorable. They got this little, like, kind of brother thing behind the scenes. And then they get to the fight, and this dude, the guy he's fighting, drops his sword, and Adol is just like, I don't need my sword, and just beats the shit out of him with his hands. I love that. And then he's like, okay, he won. And the judge was like, wait, no, you're supposed to crash 3 parts of his shard armor. And he goes, okay. So good. And I don't know why I didn't put it together that he would win this shard blade and then he would go and just give it to his brother. I love that. I love that. I cannot wait to see Adolin put his hands on more people. Fantastic. I totally forgot to mention the interlude with the last legion. Ishonai wants peace, and you can capture Spren in gems? That's gotta come up later, right? Woo! And Ishonai's mom basically has like Alzheimer's or something. That's real sad. And she wants to talk to Dalinar, probably about peace, because they want peace. Woo! Miscommunication. They'll get you every time. Just finished chapter 16, and well, we got another pissing contest between Adolin and Kaladin, and they're getting all up, and it's like, hey, you saved my life, and that's the only reason I'm not putting you through a window. And he goes, yeah, well, I don't like you either. Young men posturing. I love it. I love it. It makes sense. It makes sense, and I dig it. I did not realize that Dalinar gave his shard plate to Renarin. I like that. I like that. That his brother won him the shard blade. His dad gave him the shard plate. I'm like, that's cool. You're like carrying on your family's sort of legacy thing, and now he's becoming like one of the Kholin men, you know? I just think it's great. But this guy, what is it? Zeal? Hold on. Swordmaster Zeal. This guy. They say he's a swordmaster. They say he's different than everyone else. He's wearing like kind of common clothes, but it said his clothes were like put together by ropes. Now, they did not mention any sword on his person. And I don't know why. Is that Vasher? Is it? Because he's a sword master? Like, he's not carrying... Assuming that this is him and that my instincts are correct. He's not carrying Nightblood because he hates carrying Nightblood. And he's a sword master. But the rope belt, I was like, ooh, hold on. I know someone who had rope belts. And, like, kind of colorless clothes that were kind of... And he was, like, disheveled and kind of dirty. And had, like, long hair. And, I don't know why I believe this, because he didn't even mention a sword, or maybe I'm just grasping for things. But the second he came on screen, it reminded me of Vasher. But we'll see. Few thoughts real quick. Number one, in The Way of Kings, Dalinar was reading The Way of Kings. Now, in Words of Radiance, Shallan is reading Words of Radiance that she got from Yasna. What's that about? Also, there's a thing in the back of my mind that's been sitting there for a while that makes me really uncomfortable. And I hope I'm wrong, but there's been this whole thing about the Parshmen being the Voidbringers. And then they mentioned something about bonding with, like, Spren changes, like, your form. And so I said in a previous video that, like, I'm theorizing that maybe the Parshmen bond with, like, evil Spren or something. And that's what makes them the Voidbringers. There's no way that Shen isn't something. Because that's a Parshman that's on Bridge 4. Now, he also got the tattoo for Bridge 4, which is encouraging. But, I don't know. It just makes me nervous. It makes me nervous. What if something happens to Shen and then Shen becomes, like, a monster? I don't want that. But I don't know. It's just in my head, so I'm cataloging it. So I just finished chapter 18 and 19. And 18, Kaladin and Adolin, they got into it. I'm down with this. I love this rivalry. I think it's great for both of them. Sahil being like, hey, Renarin, just keep jumping off this cliff. You'll get used to it. I like this a lot. I hope that too. I think it is. But, again, I have nothing to confirm. So, anyway, I've always loved, like, kind of mentor figures. It's a thing with me. But that was wild. And he's like, no, I don't want to learn under you. It's fine. And he goes, let's see what you got. And so he's fighting Sahil. And then Adolin shows up and he's like, what do you think you're doing? And Kaladin just straight up, like, runs at him. And Adolin grabs him and just, like, chucks him away. And Sahil's like, hey, don't do that. You have Shardblade. And that was wild. I loved all of that. I loved that at the end, Sahil looked at him and was like, maybe you do know what you're doing. I love the fact that there's an extra shard blade that the king has, like, specifically for training purposes. one, that's a great idea to train your guys to fight shard bearers. And two, it's just sitting there with like no owner. Interesting. And also, how does this sword master, who's actually a weapons master, he knows like everything, where did he come from? Is that Vasher? And if it is, how did he get here? How did he get so ingrained in like the Alethi like monarchy? Like what's going on there? How long has he been here? Assuming it's him. Even if it isn't him, how did he get here? What is going on? I want some history. I want some facts. So that was pretty great. And then Kaladin's Stormlight got drained? Like in the middle of a fight? Just like went away? Lost his power? That can't be good. He needs to figure that shit out, because that would be real bad to happen at the wrong time. But then the next chapter is a Shallan chapter, and it's a flashback one. And one of the maids that was walking by her said that she was there, that her dad killed her mom and her mom's lover, and Shallan was like a witness to it. First off, oof. Secondly, is that what happened? Huh. And then she didn't speak for like 5 months, and her oldest brother showed up, not Non-Balat, that tortures animals, but the oldest one, and he's a shard bearer, and he shows up and threatens their dad. Ooh! Ooh! And Shallan hadn't spoken in 5 months, and she speaks for the first time to say, like, don't kill him. The innocence of babes. The innocence of babes. Damn. What a back-to-back crazy couple of chapters. Whew! Just finished chapter 22, and what a chapter. Kaladin finally told Dalinar. He told him the truth. And Dalinar was like, oh yeah, Amaram, his honor is unquestionable. And he's like, well, I gotta tell you something. And he told him. I was so stressed. It's like, please, Dalinar, don't let me down. And he was very calm about it. And he's like, hey, have you told anybody else? He's like, don't tell anybody else. Which I'm hoping means he's going to look into it himself. Because Dalinar actually is a man with unquestionable honor, in my opinion. And, yeah, he has to believe Kaladin. I'm sure he does. He trusts Kaladin enough to where he's, like, in his honor guard now. And he knows that Kaladin is honest because of his abilities. So, fingers crossed Dalinar puts his hands on Amaram, but I guess we'll see. But then Kaladin immediately is like, he didn't do anything, and I shouldn't have told him anyway. It's like, Kaladin. The moments like that is when I realize, oh yeah, Kaladin's actually really young. Because everyone looks up to him so much, and he's like this leader, and people are like, oh, Kaladin. And, you know, when he's like, I didn't get the response that I wanted, it's like, okay, well, just give it a second. Trust Dalinar, all right? He gave up his shard blade for you guys. Come on now. But I'm very interested to see how that all pans out. I did love that he's like, hey, listen, I understand you're a soldier, and you are good at what you do, and you do bring value to my army. But also, you're kind of pushing it, dude. But he was really respectful about it, which I love. But then the chapter ends with Shen coming up, and it was so heartbreaking. He's like, am I really a part of Bridge 4? And he goes, yeah, of course. He goes, well, why don't I have a spear? And he says, imagine if I gave a spear to a parshman. And it's so interesting because Kaladin's like, well, you're a parshman. I can't give you a spear. In the same way that Dalinar was like, well, that's a pretty serious accusation you got going on there, Kaladin. And then he gets mad because Dalinar didn't immediately treat him like an equal. But then Kaladin immediately afterwards is like, but Shen, you're a parshman. Huh? It's a very interesting turn of events. And then the chapter ends like, oh shit, there's an assassin after the king. So, whoo, back in. So I am just a little bit into chapter 26, and we gotta talk about some shit. So in a previous Shallan chapter, she's talking to Pattern, and Pattern says that Spren are like shattered power of honor, cultivation, and odium. So I know honor is like the shard here. That's the dude that Dalinar was seeing in his visions that was talking to him. I'm assuming cultivation is the other shard of this planet, and odium is the shard going around killing other shards. So does Roshar have three shards that it's influenced by? Because that's pretty wild. Also, tin is pretty cool. I like that Tin is like, hey, so like, you're totally lying, and like you're doing a con, right? I'm really good at cons. We should totally do it together. And Shalon's like, no, I'm genuinely, I'm Shalon. And she's like, yeah, okay, sure, totally. And then the next chapter has the bridgemen all learning to like ride horses, and Adolin is just being a butt to Kaladin like normal, and then he's saying like, hey, you're riding like the kitty horse, you should go and like ride that one. And Kaladin's like, you know what, I'm gonna. And then he gets bucked off it real bad, which is hilarious. And like, I understand he said like, you know, I have to pick this one because I'm afraid of him and I need to beat the fear. But on the other hand, he for sure did it just to like prove Adolin wrong. Like, come on. But then Kaladin sees Dalinar and Amaram talking to each other, and they're like laughing and having a good time. So I don't like that. Also, there's something else that's been in the back of my mind for a while, and I don't know how I feel about it. So, Moash at first was the one guy who was like undermining Kaladin left and right when he first got to Bridge 4. And then he's the guy who like is super invested in everything that they're learning and picking up these skills. But he also is like, hey, the Light Eyes are the enemy. Don't forget that. Even when Dalinar gives up the Shard Blade for him, he's still a Light Eyes. And so Moash, he's like picking up stuff. He's the best fighter outside of Kaladin. And I just found out in the last in the last chapter, that Moash went out on the balcony where the king fell. I just got a bad feeling. I feel like Moash is going to end up being one of those characters where it's like, there's the good guy, and then there's like the good guy's brother or the good guy's sidekick that like can't get over his hatred and then becomes the bad guy. And honestly, that would suck for Kaladin. And I just got a bad feeling. I got a bad feeling, and I don't want to have a bad feeling because Moash was like the one dude that was like, yeah, we should listen to Kaladin. And like, he always had his back. I don't know. Okay. The boots thing was really funny. The fact that Tin is talking to Shallan and be like, okay, you need to be able to like impersonate other people and like learn accents and stuff. And like, that's how you con people. And she's like, okay. It's like, can you do a Horn Eater accent? It's like, totally. And then they just so happen to run into Kaladin and the crew on their horses. And she just like pretends to be all offended and stuff. And basically he's like, okay, how do I make this stop? And she's like, your boots. I want your boots. And he's like, okay, fine. Here we go. She's headed to where he's at. So, I mean, she's going to go and be like, okay, cool. I'm here to see Adolin. Also, totally lied in front of everyone. And then she'll see Kaladin and be like, what does this mean? So, Sadeas, being the asshole that he is, Game recognizes Game when it comes to Amaram? Because Amaram is like trying to be this like cool good guy, and Sadeas is like, nope. And Amaram's like, you got me. Whoa! Also, it is really interesting kind of putting these pieces together, because Dalinar used to be this monster of a person, the Blackthorn, from what I've been told, and now, because he's kind of turned himself around and he's trying to be a good, honorable man, he's like trusting everyone around him. He's like overcompensating for being a bad person. Now he's trying to be a good person, and he's assuming other people are good people as well, which is why he trusted Sadeas, and then Sadeas betrayed him, and he's still like able to coexist. And then he's trusting Amaram, and behind his back, Amaram and Sadeas are both like, yeah, we're real pieces of shit, aren't we? And it's like, yeah. Dalinar's surrounded. So I just started chapter 32, and Kaladin is tripping out, and he's having this dream with the Stormfather, and the Stormfather says, you're going to murder Syl and leave her body to trade, and he calls him a little traitor. What? And then in the middle of it, he just goes, oh no. I'm sorry. He's coming. What in the ominous storms is that? Like, I know it's got to be Odium, but like, what? Seth just showed up, and he's like Darth Vader at the end of Rogue One, just like killed somebody, and then he's looking up at him, and his eyes are all glowy. And Dalinar, oh shit! Seth killed Gavilar! So Dalinar's like, oh, we're doing this. Renarin, get the king out of here. And then he's like, all right, Kaladin, do you know what the trident is? And he's like, shit, yeah. And then Adolin's like, all right, let's do this. What? Yikes. Szeth showed up. He's there for Dalinar. I totally forgot the chapter in The Way of Kings with his new master, and he's like, hey, I need you to go kill Dalinar. Completely blocked that out because I think I love Dalinar. And I was like, no, we don't need to remember this. And I threw it away. Whew. Wow. That was insane. That was insane. So in the middle of fighting, he puts Adolin up on the ceiling because, of course he does. You know what, Adolin? I don't know why. That checks out. But he's going to kill Dalinar. And Dalinar catches a shard blade with his hands. With his hands! Dalinar's the coolest. Dalinar is the coolest. And then Kaladin got his hand cut, which I screamed. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, what? And he healed it with Stormlight, which is nuts. And then he's about to kill Dalinar, and Kaladin just like grabs him and sends him out the window, and they both land. And then Szeth is like, how'd you do that? And Kaladin's like, I'm one of you. And Szeth freaks out. He's like, wait, they said I was a liar. So Szeth, I guess, knew that he had this thing, this power, and he told some people about it, I'm assuming, and they called him a liar. They called him truthless, and basically, like, cast him out and whatever. So, and then he was like, are the others here? Do the others know? What does any of that mean? And Syl also was like, no, he's not a Radiant. He's not powered by Spren. He's powered by something worse. So, what is that about? Like, is Odium his master? Is that who that was? And in which case, how is Odium separate from the Radiants? And why does Szeth have all these powers that are similar to the Radiants? Like, he can lash and shit, and he can do, he uses Stormlight. So, what is that about? It just like, whew. That was so much. That was so much. But I'm glad everyone's okay. I'm glad they're fine. Adolin's like looking at Kaladin and being like, I'm pretty sure he got his arm cut and the sleeves cut, but he seems to be fine. I am very curious as to if/when/how Kaladin is going to tell Dalinar that he's a Radiant. Because Dalinar's like way into this stuff. And obviously he doesn't want to tell Adolin. But the fact that he hasn't told Dalinar yet is very, very interesting to me. So how's he going to do it? That was nuts. Tin was behind Yasna's assassination? You can't trust anybody out here. And also, Shallan is a shard blade? Is that how she killed her dad? What is happening? Like, how did she get a shard blade? Did she defeat a shard bearer? It's Shallan out in these backyards just throwing hands at people, picking up shard blades? What is that? Or because she's a light weaver, she can just like make shit. So she made a shard blade because she can do that? Is that a thing? I don't know. And Pattern can like imitate and mimic voices? That tripped me up. When Tin is like, damn, you would have been good at this. And it's like beating Shallan, and then you hear Yasna's voice, and I was like, oh shit, Yasna's alive! And it's like, no, it was Pattern. I'm like, Pattern can do that? I got nothing. I got no words. This is insane. Oh, and the Ghost Bloods. The Ghost Bloods are actually behind it. The Ghost Bloods were the benefactors that hired Tin to assassinate Yasna. What? Why? And they're looking for like a city of Urithiru? But, and the span read at the end was like, hey, they got more work for you to do. Do you want to set up a meeting with the Ghost Bloods at the war camps? And she was like, yeah. What? I know I keep saying what is happening, but genuinely, what is happening? I just finished the shit. I can't even talk right now. The interlude with Yashonai. She went into the high storm. She saw the Stormfather's face. She brought the Spren in with her, and the Stormfather was like, "Oh shit, I can't stop this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And then the Spren turned into like a red line, and it went into her chest, and her body starts changing, and she's transforming, but it was red, which is like Odium's thing. Is Yashonai? Is she gonna turn into a Voidbringer? Because that sucks. She was like, "I want peace. Let's do this." And is she about to involuntarily turn into a Voidbringer? Because what? All right, I'm convinced 100%. Zahil is Vasher. Because he knew that somebody was coming up to his tent before they got there. Sounds like a heightening thing to me. And he said that he could sense Syl around Kaladin. And then the final clue, which confirmed it for me, is he laid down, went back to sleep, and he was like, he expected a voice in his head, but he hasn't heard that in years. So I'm assuming the voice is Nightblood, so that's for sure Vasher. But now my question is, how did he get on Roshar? Why is he ingrained in the monarchy and, the Colin family? And also, where's Nightblood? How did he get rid of him? Huh. So Taln? That sounds weird coming out of my mouth. That guy, he's the guy from the end of The Way of Kings who showed up to Hoid and was like, and he was like, called himself a herald and then dropped his shard blade and then just passed out. So him and Hoid traveled together, and then Hoid was like, "Hold on a second," and hits himself in the head with a rock and was like, "That's what it's like hanging out with you," which is ridiculous. But now this guy's with Alucard, and I'm assuming that's Dalinar he's with. But the shard blade is the one that he's carrying is unaccounted for, which is strange. And they kept calling him a madman, and he keeps like repeating himself. So he's not a herald. He's just a guy, but he's a dark-eyed guy who has a shard blade, but he's not bonded to it. What do I do with this? I feel a tempest brewing just beyond our experience. A powerful, angry tempest. A high storm. With enough of us bearing this form together, we could bring it. Voidbringers. And she's getting everybody riled up, and then it says, she pointedly ignored the voice deep within her that was screaming in horror. That sucks. Ishonai this whole time is like, "I want to talk to Dalinar. Maybe we can have some peace." And she's still cognizant in there? That's somehow even worse. It's like when Marsh was being controlled by Ruin. Damn. So I just finished chapter 36, and Shallan and Kaladin meet again in the war camps, and Kaladin immediately clocks her and then looks at her feet and is like, "Where are my boots? I just got those." And then they just get into this insult battle where it's like, "Oh, your breath smells. Yeah, well, your face is dumb. Yeah, well, your parents are stupid. Yeah, well," and it just keeps getting worse and worse. Hilarious. Hilarious. What an introduction Shallan is making. It's so good. It's so good. I just finished chapter 37. And, I like that Adolin is still, like, trying to duel people, and he's still, on about business. God, I hate Amaram. I hate him so much. And Sadeas is like, "Oh, hey, it was a mercy, me trying to kill you and your dad and, all of your men. And I killed like 6,000, but like, it was a nice thing that I'm doing." I was like, "I hate you, Sadeas." But then Amaram shows up, and he's pretending, well, he's not pretending. he's like the voice of reason. That's like, oh, no, me and Sadius, we both, will make the hard decision. But I agree with your dad on that we should be making... I hate that he makes sense, and I hate that Adolin is like, wow, he's like the perfect general. The way he carries himself, he's got his uniform. I don't give a shit, Adolin. That guy's a monster and needs to be brought down physically with fists. And then anyway, while all this is happening, Shallan walks in the room, and Adolin just like gets all googly-eyed with her. And it's like, oh my god, who is that? That is incredible. Adolin, the playboy who's with all of these women, has been engaged, and it's like, oh, this thing. Sees Shallan is just smitten. Fantastic. I did think it was funny that he was like, it described Shallan as like, thinner, not curvy like an Alethi. And I'm like, hold the phone. Adolin don't like a woman with no curves? Dude, you are wrong. Although it is the worst timing ever that this is all happening, and he goes up to her and he's like, I'm gonna go talk to her. And then he gets up to her and she's like, by the way, Yasna's dead. Oof. Big oof. I just finished chapter 39, and so it was a Milan. You know what? I'm leaving that in. I'm not even going to cut that. It's a Shallan flashback, not Milan. Can you tell what's on my mind? Anyway, it was a Shallan flashback, and it was the guy with the two colored eyes showed up, and that's a sign that he was like a light eye and a dark eye, so he's like a bastard. I love that. That is so cool. So, what a cool way to show that. But anyway, this guy shows up at a feast, and he's calling out Shallan's dad, and he's like, hey, we've heard that you killed your wife, and we think you need to stand trial for it. And he's like, no, she got killed by her lover, and then he killed himself, which is, convenient. And this guy was like, does anyone gonna testify against this guy? And nobody did. But what was interesting, the thing that stuck out for me from this chapter, is Shallan told her brothers her dad didn't kill her mom. Why did she say that? What? That kind of threw me for a loop. Like, did Shallan accidentally kill everybody? Like, maybe how would she summon a Shardblade as like a child? How would she get a Shardblade? But like, if she's the one that did it, then her dad is not this psychopathic monster, but he is. I don't know, that threw me for a loop. Alright, I just finished episode 41, and we need to talk about how Brandon Sanderson has given me severe trust issues of every character ever. Even when I know I shouldn't. So I love that Kaladin can run on walls now. I think that's cool. I love that he's like, I need to learn to fight this guy. Right on. Hey, whatever keeps you fighting forward to improve and get better and better, more power to you. I love that. But Kaladin obviously has some pretty intense trust issues when it comes to Light Eyes, but he said that he wants to know that Dalinar is the real deal. Because if he is the real deal, he's going to tell him that he's a Radiant, which I love. But because I'm experiencing this chapter through Kaladin, I'm like, oh shit, I really hope Dalinar is like as cool as he seems. I know he's that cool. I know he's the best. I know Dalinar is that guy. But because Kaladin is so distrustful of every Light Eyes, which, to be fair, he earned those stripes. I get it. But Dalinar. In Dalinar, I trust. That is my guy. I'm ride or die Dalinar now till the end. But Kaladin, it's like, I wanted to tell him so bad, but I get that he needs to know for sure if it's real. I get it. And I do also really enjoy that he's like, oh no, I'm going to kill Amarim. Just so we know, that's still happening. On business. I love that. When Syl was like, oh, Kaladin's like, nope, Syl, sit this one out. Man's got to go to, he's got to handle some business. You know what I mean? I loved Renarin. Renarin coming to Kaladin and begging him to train him. Love it. That, honestly, one of my favorite moments from this book so far. It's just so, the humility that Renarin has, the way that he feels less than, because his dad and his brother are these incredible shard bearers that are like of legend. And because he's epileptic, he feels less than, so he comes to Kaladin, and Kaladin's like, whoa, hey. So I do love, I hope that this is like a healing thing. I hope that Renarin can come into his own and realize, just because you have this illness doesn't mean you are less than. And I'm also hoping that this lets Kaladin start to understand that not every single Light Eyes, just most of them, are terrible. So I hope this can turn into something between the two of them. I love that this is a thing that's happening. And then there's Moash. Now, I've said it in the past, there's something about Moash. I don't know what it is. Perhaps it's his bigotry towards Light Eyes. But something about him is just setting off alarms. There's a disturbance in the Force. Something ain't right. And I don't know what it is yet. Like, I love that Kaladin has Moash because they're like pals. They're the only two that I feel like, kind of get each other on this very specific level where they've been screwed over by a Light Eyes, like, real bad at one point or another. But when Renarin shows up, total humility, heart on his sleeve, head bowed to a dark eye, and Moash is like, I don't care, he's got Light Eyes. We hate this guy. Like, that is not productive, dude. Also, the Kholins, they've been cool to you guys. Anyway, something ain't right there. And then he talks about, like, you're going to have to, challenge Amaram to a duel and beat him that way, which I love. I think that's great. I hope that happens, because that would be so cool. But then Kaladin was like, hey, you've been hurt real bad by him too. And he goes, uh-huh. And he goes, you going to tell me? And he's like, no. And I'm like, what? Dude, you just said, we're Bridge 4. Your problem is my problem. And then Kaladin turns it on you, and you're like, nah, just kidding. What is that? What is that? That's like somebody, when you're playing Truth or Dare, and then you like, kind of bully the other person into doing Dare, and then when it's your turn, you're like, Truth. I'm like, come on, dude. But this was great. I love that Renarin is like, I want to be a Bridge 4. Because he can tell it's like something that means something. It's a safe place for him to like learn to be a shard bearer, I love that. But, yeah, just so much. Okay, I'm on chapter 45, and we need to talk about 44 and 43, because first off, Shallan can shapeshift? She can cast, like, disguise self, or, like, alter self? Didn't know that was a thing. I'm assuming that's, like, a Lightweaver thing. But, so there's that. Also, she met with the Ghostbloods, right? Now, mind you, these are members that I don't know, which is strange and concerning. But why do the Ghostbloods want Yasna dead? That is a question that is bugging me in the back of my mind always. And these new people, you got Moraes, the main dude, right? And then you've got some light-eyed man with big teeth. You got a short, tan-skinned woman who's wearing a mask. Interesting. And in their, like, hideout, they got, like, trophies. So they got, like, gem hearts on the wall. They got other stuff that they never give any context for, which is kind of wild. But then he said they want to kill Amaram. They're like, don't touch Amaram because his life belongs to somebody else. And he has secrets that they need, which, understandably, secrets are kind of like the thing of the Ghostbloods. But, yeah, they said, do not harm Amaram. His life belongs to another. What? So that was way confusing, and I'm very, like, I know, the leader of the Ghostbloods. So then, like, what is he doing? Why did he kill Yasna? What are you doing on Roshar? So I'm thinking about that. And then the next chapter, the introduction says there's only 3 bondsmiths. So they were super rare? Interesting. And then Zahil is training the bridgemen to fight a shard blade. So they used like the king's extra shard blade and to like swing it at him. And everybody picked it up to like hold it and see how it feels, except for Kaladin. And when Kaladin didn't, Syl was like, thank you. Now, in the past, it's been mentioned that the Radiance killed all of their Spren. And the Radiance, I'm just now putting together, used shard blades, right? So maybe that's why Syl's afraid of shard blades, because they killed all the Spren? Or killed their Spren at the time? I don't know, I gotta think about that one. I do love that Kaladin was like, I need you to swing this at me without the guard, because I need to be afraid, because I need to get used to it. Pressure testing, best way to learn something when it comes to combat, for sure. I did think it was hilarious that Teft and Kaladin now think Shallan might be the assassin. Fantastic. They're like, it's kind of weird that she just like showed up and is betrothed to Adolin, huh? Like, she could pretty close to him. And he's like, yeah, you're right. That made me laugh. But then Moash, he told him, apparently King Elhokar killed his grandparents, or was responsible for their deaths. So his grandparents were like, they had competition because they were like silversmiths, but then there was somebody across the street. So the king, Gavilar, was like gone, so Elhokar was in charge, and Elhokar was like, oh, well, throw him in jail or whatever. And they were old, and they died in jail after being in prison for like 2 months. That's rough. That is rough. And he was behind the attempt with the banister thing on the balcony of the king's room. It was Moash that did it. But Moash said that there's a group that's like working in his interest. Is Moash a Ghostblood? Is he? Because if he is, I did not see that coming. And, so many mixed feelings. Alright, I'm currently on chapter 49. We gotta catch up on some stuff. So, one, Shallan, when she was younger, she was talking to this messenger who, like, was, trying to find out if she was a Surgebinder or not. That was Hoid, right? That was Hoid. It's gotta be. Something about him just struck Hoid for me. And then in the next chapter, all the guys go out drinking, and it's great and everything. But Rock talks about meeting a god, like his god. And it was also absolutely Hoid, because he was like making fun of him, and he like came up from the waters, and he says the realm of the gods is underneath the water. And when he was explaining, like, oh, he had white hair, and then Sigsel was like, white hair? Huh. Definitely Hoid. And also the big like pools of water at the peaks where Rock is from, that's a perpendicular, right? Like underneath the water, they come up from there, and that's what happened with Hoid. And then they're like, oh, you're the god. And Hoid was probably like, yeah, can you tell? Pretty cool looking, huh? So that was interesting. But the Ghostbloods, so these ones, it's Graves, Danlin, and Rill. And they want the king killed so that Dalinar can rule. Very interesting. Why do the Ghostbloods care that Elhokar is, like, stable? I don't know what's going on with that. And then, when they talk to Kaladin, and they're like, this is right. And they're like, he said he'll consider it. I was like, what? Kaladin will consider it? And then he's like, oh no, he just said that so they'd let him leave. Let him leave the room alive. That was a bit. That was a lot. And then Moash. Listen, I'm telling you, Moash is up to some stuff that is not good at all. Because this revenge stuff. Listen, I'm all for it when it comes to Amaram and Sadeas, but when it comes to the king, I mean, you're talking about like a political vacuum and all that, and just like, oof, I don't know. I feel like Moash, his specifically him, his need for revenge feels different. Because Kaladin's like, I'm going to kill Amaram, but for some reason it feels different than when Moash talks about trying to kill the king, So then from there, Shallan is going over like Yasin's notes, and she mentions like Urithiru is like a hidden city, and that's where like the shard blades come from and all kind of the magic cool stuff. But there may be like a secret entrance to the city in the Shattered Plains. Interesting. Very interesting. Although, Pattern was talking, and she's like, oh yeah, I've only been doing this for like a short time, talking about she can like use Stormlight, and then she can kind of reuse it, which is exciting. But Pattern said, short time, but we first, and then she like stopped listening and it went completely blank, and it said that Shallan stopped listening until he was done talking. Huh. Very interesting. So she can reuse it, which is great. Her brother, one of her brothers was taken by this group because he owed a shit ton of money for, like, gambling debts, and her dad and Balat were both like, well, c'est la vie. And she's like, what? Give me your knives. Give me your necklace. And she went in to save him. That was pretty wild. But when her dad showed up later, and he had just, like, beaten the shit out of a maid or something, and he's like, Shallan, I'd never hurt you. You know, it's the anger, and they're the ones that are making me angry, and I just got to get it out. And I'm like, ooh, yikes. But she said he glanced toward Mother's soul? What does any of that mean? So it was that, and then and then we go to the next chapter, and Shallan is talking to Adolin, and Adolin's like, oh, you make him talk about himself, it's fine. And they're talking about, like, jumping over plateaus and how they find chasm fiends and chrysalisks and gem hearts and all that. And Shallan just goes, how do you poop? And Adolin's like, what? He's like, yeah, pooping. How you be pooping? And he's like, you know, it happens. And then he's like, you know what? I'll tell you straight. I've shit my pants 3 times. And then he was like, this is delightful. What else you want to know? Just get more beer over. Great. Love it. A lot of confusing. A lot of what does that mean? And then just pooping in the armor. 10 out of 10, Brando Sando. I'm in. Alright, I'm halfway through chapter 52. And first and foremost, Amaram is also interested in the Parshendi and bringing forth the Voidbringers. I didn't see that coming. But even more than that, this chapter keeps bouncing back and forth between Kaladin training to run on the walls and everything, and Shallan disguising herself and going into Amaram's house for the Ghostbloods. It is stressing me out, bouncing back and forth, so I'm like, wait, why are you doing this? Because, you know, the Sanderlanche is when it bounces between a bunch, and it keeps going back and forth between these, and I'm like, what is about to happen? What? Amaram's Shardblade belonged to Shallan's brother? Does that mean the Shardbearer who Kaladin killed by stabbing him in the eye was Shallan's brother? What? Adolin? Big fan. Big fan. I love how he's trying to just win Shardblades any way he can. One time just put hands on somebody, another time pretending he's not that good, and then this most recent duel where he's like playing with him and he's goading everyone into it, and this dude will not duel him because he's like, please. And Adolin's like, dude, I'll give you 6 shards to yours if you want to do this. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna. And Adolin says he'll take on 2 at once? That's badass. I love that. He's like, good. Listen, I'll give you my whole family's shard blades, all of them, and 2 of you at once. What a badass. Adolin, respect. Oh, also something I totally forgot to mention from a previous chapter. Syl mentioned to Kaladin that it's possible to forge new shard blades. That's pretty cool. Anyway, Adolin. Yeah, Adolin, handle your business, son. Do what you gotta do. What? Dalinar? What? What are you doing, dude? Okay. Alright, I gotta calm down. What? I just finished chapter 55. Ugh. Dalinar jumped the gun, and he's saying that he's reinstituting the Knights Radiant, but Amaram is the first official Knights Radiant? But I'm knocking shit over. He knows. Kaladin told him. What the hell, dude? I just finished chapter 56, and holy shit. Man, you know what? It's good that I didn't live stream it because I was swearing up a storm. Woo! Four. First off, for the record, Yakimov is a bitch, and I stand on that. The fact that Adolin is getting, like, trampled by 4, and he's like, God, I almost had it. And Renarin showed up, and he forgot his mom's necklace, and then, first, Sadius, bitch. Amaram, double bitch. Elokar, also a bitch. What is Dalinar surrounded by bitches, dude? Anyway, sorry. I'm hyped right now. The fact that it ends with, like, Dalinar's ready to jump in, and they're like, no, you can't. They're just going to turn on you and kill you. And I'm like, I'm turned, dude. What is happening? And it's like, it's the Blackthorn. I would have done it with a rock. Shut up. And so all this is happening. And then he's like, is there anybody else here? And there's a viral TikTok sound that I've heard so many times, but I didn't know who was talking because Michael Kramer, you know, he does a lot of like similar voices for similar characters. So I had no idea who it was going to be. And it was Dalinar asking, you know, what has become of us? Like, is there no honor? What a line for Kaladin to walk out. Mind you, Kaladin, the guy who just went to Dalinar and was like, hey, Amaram is awful. Don't trust him. He's terrible. And then Dalinar's like, well, we got to get the new Knights Radiant. So let's have Amaram be the guy. And he's wearing the cloak and everything. And Kaladin's like, what the shit, dude? That's the guy I just told you. For Kaladin, of all people, to show up. Woo! For Kaladin to say, honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do. Oh my God. All right, Kaladin, I take back every bad thing I have ever said about you. Granted, I've not said any bad thing about you, but there were times when I'm like, come on, dude, we got this. Ooh. Wow. Next chapter. Okay, just finished chapter 57, and they won. Awesome. Love it. Yakimov, still a bitch. But then you get this big moment, and Adolin is like, okay, I want to fight Sadius right now, which is insane. They both just fought 4 shard bearers, and, I mean, they won, which is fantastic. But Sadius was like, let me get out of here real quick. He's like, I want to fight Sadius right now. Again, wild, because you've got to be exhausted, dude. His shard plate was completely empty as Stormlight. Bold, love it. And then Kaladin was like, wait a second, I'm in this fight too. You know, I want to fight Amaram, because that dude is a murderer, and he killed my friends, and I want this right now. And Elokar stands up and says, arrest him, to Kaladin. Take the king out. I don't care. What? Elokar is an optical racist. And he's throwing Kaladin in jail. And he was going to have him executed. For calling out Amaram. And you know what? As much as I hate it, I get it that Dalinar, he did his due diligence. The fact that he got 17 other men to corroborate Amaram's lies, that is hard to argue with. I totally understand from his point of view. I hate it, but I understand. That's a guy you've known for decades. He has unquestionable honor as far as the PR team is concerned. And he has 17 other people. That's 18 people versus 1. Okay, I get it. And the fact that he was like telling Kaladin, I'm glad that he stuck with him. And he's like, hey, listen, he's the only guy, he saved my sons. Like, I'm glad that Dalinar really stood 10 toes down and was like, no, if you execute him, you will make an enemy of me. Okay, cool. I'm glad Dalinar did that. And he's trying, and also, I'm just apologizing for Dalinar now. I get that Dalinar, you know, he's getting the weird, like, countdowns, on his walls carved into shit. So he's like, I'm on the clock. I don't have time for this. Also, you completely ruined our plans. Valid. But Kaladin's back in jail now. Damn it. I will say things that I forgot to mention because I was so hyped. Kaladin did a last clap. He did it. In battle. that was awesome. What was not awesome is the second he touched the shard blade, he'd heard screaming in his head, and Realist also heard it, and he went so crazy he ran out. So I don't know what that was about. And, you know, Syl before was like, I'm glad you didn't touch the shard blade. So she knew that was going to happen. But what does that mean? Because Kaladin is a Radiant. The Radiants, from what I understand, killed their Spren. But Shallan is also a Radiant. And she's touching it, and Pattern doesn't mind. So is it the Honor Spren that were the ones that were killed specifically? I don't know what's up with that. But, man, what a roller coaster of a few chapters. And the fact that Sadeas just weaseled his way out was like, oh no, yeah, I agree, in like a year. What a bitch. Man, will say, you guys know, Dalinar has always been my number one. Adolin's number two. That was badass, dude. The fact that he saw 4 people and was like, okay, and just went for it, like, what a badass. He is awesome. And everyone was like, oh my god, he actually, he won. Whoa. Nuts. And I love that Kaladin was watching him fight and was like, whoa, he's actually incredible. Like, 2-on-1 was actually, like, even for him. Where before, like, can you take on 2-on-1? Yeah. Yeah, he can. As someone whose favorite Game of Thrones character is Barristan Selmy, because he's absolutely incredible on the battlefield, yeah. Adolin's number 2. The Kholin boys. I'm about it. I loved Renarin. I loved Kaladin jumping in with his cold line of, like, I'll see what I can do. That's so cool. I love that he, like, lashed himself into and broke his legs and his feet. Crazy. That was a wild couple chapters. And it is, I hate this system where Kaladin, like, granted, Kaladin has some growing up to do. I'll be the first to say it. That dude needs to figure some shit out, because he knew they were trying to get Sadeas, and he just could not wait. He took the moment away, which is, you know, listen, Dalinar was like, your need for vengeance kind of ruined everything. I understand both sides of this coin. But I also, the reason I get so turnt and mad about this shit is because it's not just vengeance, it's injustice. And, Elhokar throwing him in jail after that? Injustice! Damn. Okay, so I finished the Lift interlude and the Szeth one. And, we got some stuff to talk about. So for starters, Lift is adorable. She's 13 years old. She's a little girl. And she's out, like, thieving. And she can eat food and turn it into Stormlight, which is pretty wild. And listen, I love Syl. She's wonderful. Pattern's funny. I think Wendell might be my favorite Spren. He's he's a funny little guy. He's like, oh god, because he's like, I don't know, he's like babysitting her, even though she obviously doesn't need it. But just the hijinks between the two, and the fact that he can, like, turn into vines. I don't know, that's just really cool. And then he also said that he didn't want to pick Lift. He's like, I wanted, like, a grandmother type of thing. But then he said the ring chose her. And he said that Lift has visited the old magic, and they were thinking of picking her because they can, like, mold her and stuff. But the old magic, and then he mentioned, like, the mother, right? And the mother grants, like, stuff. So the Night Watcher is the mother of all Spren? If that's true, that's pretty wild. I laughed out loud when Wendell is trying to explain to her, like, how things work, and she just, like, starts yawning. And then he tries it again, and she just yawns even more. She's like, oh my god, this is so boring. Wonderful. So good. But then the guy who killed Yim with the crescent scar on his face, he showed up, and he's like, I'm here for the thief. And just straight up, like, grabs a tiny girl, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna kill her. What? And he's able to, like, take Stormlight from people. He, like, threw something at her and then, like, took her Stormlight. That is terrifying. Also, they mentioned something about, like, shard blades, right? So you can have a shard blade and not be a Radiant. I'm assuming, right? Like, just having a shard blade doesn't make you a Radiant, because, like, Sadeas isn't and Elhokar isn't. Yeah, so that's a little wild. And this guy is just going around taking shard blades, so yikes. And they killed her friend, and she was able to bring him back. And then she was able to bring him back with the Stormlight. And this guy, Darkness, whatever he is, RoboCop is what I'm calling him, because he's like, justice, it's about the law. He's RoboCop. So RoboCop sees Lift bring her friend back to life. And he's like, oh, you're an edge dancer. How does he know that? And then he said, what you are must be stopped. So what is he doing? And I do love that as this is all happening, her friend that's brought back to life, the other, like, priests who are, like, essentially the Dalai Lama people, are like, oh, he just came back to life after he died. That's the new ruler. Gotta be. And then he's like, quick, she's pardoned. And then, you know, RoboCop is just like, oh, all right. Wild. But all of this did make, like, he said, what you are must be stopped, right? He's also a shard bearer who can use Stormlight, so I'm guessing he's some kind of Radiant, I would assume. Probably wrong, but who knows? But he said they need to be stopped. And that kind of got my brain turning a little bit to where, what if the Voidbringers are actually the Radiants? That would be nuts. There's no way that's true, though. But I'm pretty sure I could be misremembering or missing stuff. I mean, Lift straight up took a cudgel to the chest and, like, cracked her ribs. That's a child. That's crazy. But, so they I think she mentioned that shard blades were made to kill Spren? Huh. Like, that was their design? That's why they exist, is to kill Spren, and people have just been using them for, like, war and shit? Pretty wild. But anyway, all of that was nuts. Lift is cool. I like her. She's a scrappy little girl. I love that she calls her powers awesomeness. She's like, time to get awesome. Let's do this. I love that. That's great. And we go from that to Zeth, who is having a hard time. And he's hanging out in Urithiru, the place that Shallan is trying to get to. Zeth is there. And maybe it's just because of who I am, but when they were, like, describing it, it pretty much sounds like it looks like Minas Tirith in Gondor. Like, with the levels and the rings kind of get bigger as they go on. So that's pretty wild. But then the chapter ended with him being like, you know what? And he, like, jumps off, and then he goes to a village nearby, and they, like, leave out spheres for him because they think he's, like, a god. And he said that he's going to go somewhere and get information, or at the very least, kill somebody that he wants to kill, which is pretty intense. Is it the guy who is holding his oath stone, or is it somebody else? I don't know, but those are wild. So I finished the interludes and I read the following chapter. Listen, this Ishonai stuff is bonkers. Like, so she also has a Spren now, because she's in the Storm form. But what's crazy to me is, like, the Stormfather kept apologizing to her as it was happening. Was like, I can't stop this, I'm so sorry. And turned her into the Storm form. And she also hears her own voice screaming inside of her. Okay. So she also has a Shard Blade and Shard Plate. So, like, she has a Spren now. So she's a Radiant. Right? But she got 200 other soldiers to also take on the Storm form. And she's, like, doing this army thing. And then they're also getting a shit ton of Spren to bond with them. They're Voidbringers, right? That's the whole thing. Also, she can summon a High Storm? Sounds like a Voidbringer to me. And then in the next chapter, Hoid goes and visits Kaladin in jail. And he's like, hold on, let me sing a little song for you. But he mentioned that how easy it is to tune his, like, little lute thing now that he has perfect pitch. Heightening stuff going on there. I see you. He basically just showed up to be like, hey, let's sing a little song together and, like, tell a little story. And then Kaladin's all, like, pouting. And then he's like, oh, so what does happen next? Interesting little reverse psychology there, pal. Well done. So I'm on chapter 63, and, listen. 61, Shallan's dad is awful. He straight up put a hit on his own son. Yikes. Also, Shallan's dad's guard kills puppies? What the shit is that about? Like, you know you've got to be bad when you're making Non-Balat, who tortures animals, seem like a decent person. That was wild. But Shallan again said that her dad didn't kill her mom. What is that? It's like part of me wants to believe that, yeah, he did, but she's like, you know, trying to forget about it and it's just like blocking it out and like things are getting mixed up because she was young. But the other part of me thinks maybe she accidentally killed her mom in some like episode of something. Like, obviously I'm just spitballing, I don't really know. But I keep thinking, even back then, she mentioned like counting her heartbeats, like 10 heartbeats. So she had a shard blade even back then. How did she get a shard blade? That's the thing that keeps like going around in my head. Because I doubt she killed a shard bearer. But she does have one. And I'm assuming nobody else knows she has it. So, I don't know. And then 62, Dalinar visits Kaladin. Dalinar is still the best. I love this guy. Hands down, my favorite Stormlight character so far. And the fact that he is like trying to talk sense into Kaladin, it's really interesting. Because on the one side, the system is wrong, right? But Dalinar has figured out how to like navigate within it while still not being a total piece of shit. You know? Like, he straight up told Kaladin, like, hey, what were you thinking? Like, you are a Dark Eyes. If you want to change that, you need to be someone that everyone can look up to, and that would change it. The fact that Dalinar is talking about ways to change society through Kaladin, that's huge. And then Kaladin just isn't listening. I don't know. He's young. And I'm just like, dude, the fact that Dalinar knew about Moash's grandparents is wild. Small world. But even worse, Rashon is behind it. So Rashon had friends who were silversmiths and got Moash's grandparents thrown into jail to the point where they pretty much starved to death. And then they heard about it. Dalinar wanted him stripped of his titles and lived in squalor, and like he wanted to throw the book at him, which would have been awesome. But instead, Elhokar was like, nah, ship him out, and shipped him to Kaladin. So Kaladin was just as wronged by Rashon as Moash was. So they got that in common. But then the chapter ends with Kaladin being like, you know what, Dalinar, you're a good person, and I'm going to help you by taking out the king. It's like he heard nothing that Dalinar said. Now, mind you, I am no friend to Elhokar. Not at all. If he died, honestly, wouldn't care at all. For the record. But I would very much care at the power vacuum and chaos that would create for Dalinar. So, it's like, Kaladin, you ruined the moment with Adolin, and then you get thrown in jail, and now you're going to get out of jail in a couple days and immediately go to the group of assassins that Moash is talking to execute the king. It's like, dude, why are you doing this? Anyway, we're on 63 now, so we'll see what happens. So I'm halfway through 63, and so the Ghostblood woman with the mask, her name is Eatil. And I don't think that's someone I know beforehand. But Shallan is talking about they're supposed to go look for this madman that's being sent to Dalinar's camp. And Dalinar doesn't let anyone talk to him, and they're wondering why, you know, what's the deal. Is the madman Taln? And if that's the case, if Taln really is a herald, because before they said he's claiming to be a herald, but the way that they said it made me feel like maybe he's not a herald. But now I'm starting to think maybe he is a herald. And if he is, God, how old must he be? And where has he been this whole time? I don't even have the brain space to even start down that road. But if they brought Taln to the Shattered Plains, and theoretically, Urithiru There's an entrance to it, maybe in the Shattered Plains. But the Voidbringers, which I'm assuming is what Ishonai is building an army of, I feel like a storm's brewing. So, Mraize, who I thought originally was like the leader of this sect of the Ghostbloods, is actually Iatil's student. Cool. Taln is called Stone Sinew. That's a pretty cool name. But when Shallan started light weaving, he was like, one of Ishona's knights, and was like freaking out. What is that about? That makes me think that the Knights Radiance are actually the Voidbringers, but there's no way that could be true. But then Amaram went to see him, and he was like calling him beautiful and like looking at him, and then he was asking about like honor blades, which I'm assuming are the like giant swords that the heralds used. But now I'm curious as to how honor blades might be different than shard blades, because I mean, they got different names. But Shallan impressed the Ghostbloods so much that they offered her membership, but now she has to get a Ghostblood tattoo? That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. I'm still absolutely lost and confused as to why they're on Roshar, or what their plan is, why they're doing any of this. Like, what's the big picture here? Whose life, or who does Amaram's life belong to? Like, what is any of that? But, I'm gonna get a tattoo, because that's pretty cool. Also, Shallan, there's a flashback of Shallan, and she's talking to her stepmom, who just got the shit beat out of her by her dad. And that chapter ends with her being like, hey, you gotta get out of here, Nambalat's gonna leave too to go get my older brother, like, it's gonna be fine. And she's like, well, then who's he gonna hate, you know? Because for some reason, he can't hate you, and you're the one that deserves it. What? Okay, Adolin locked himself in jail as well, and for as long as Kaladin was in jail. And then when he got out, there was like a big party, and he's like, hey, so I got you a little something. He was going to give Kaladin his own set of shard plate and a shard blade. Adolin's awesome. Yep, number two. Number two, second favorite character. For show. Colin boys, ride or die, always. But then, of course, Kaladin, and mind you, he has good reasons, but he gave it to Moash. And I've been saying for a while that Moash, there's something about him that just doesn't rubs me the wrong way. And now he's got a shard blade and shard plate. I don't like it. I don't know why I don't like it, but I don't like it. I do love that Adolin immediately believed Kaladin about Amaram. Like, right away, it was like, yeah, you know what? Something never smelled right about him. I love that. I love that. You know, you guys have been watching my videos for a while. You know, I love me some, like, really close, intimate moments between characters that are just, like, really real. That moment between Kaladin and Adolin, tops. So good. We need to talk about Hoid. So I just finished chapter 67. And, you know, Navani's transcriptions of Dalinar's visions got, like, spread to the public, but they were changed to make him sound a little crazy. Not Hoid related, but wild. How did somebody get them? And then how long ago did they have them enough to change the words and then put them out? Anyway, beside the point. Hoid. Hoid is back, right? But he showed up long enough to talk shit to Amaram, which I loved. That was great. And the point when he's like, oh, interesting. I want to know what cleaning product you use to get your hands clean, because it's got to be kind of difficult. Love that. Other question, how does he know this? And then he's talking to Dalinar, and Dalinar's like, am I a tyrant? And he's like, yeah, but that's what you need. And I was like, okay. And then he said, essentially, Dalinar's king, as he should be, because that's what the world needs. And then he said, I would let the world burn with tears in my eyes, so I would feel bad about it, but I would let them burn to get what I want. What does he want? Also, he's like, oh, I'm just a man. No, he's not. No, he's not. I've seen him do some crazy things in some crazy places. And he knows too much? Like, how did he know the Herald was gonna be there before he got there? How does Hoyd know any of this stuff? What does he want? And then he said he has to leave now, which he just got there. So why did he show up just in time? Did he show up just to tell Dalinar, like, hey, maybe you should be king? Huh. Also, he said that essentially Odium is, like, after him. Why is he after him? Why does Odium know who he is? They said, I'm assuming, just kind of putting pieces together in my head, probably wrongly, that Ray's was the guy who took over the shard and became Odium in the same way that, like, AT took the shard and became Ruin. Is that what that is? And maybe Hoyd knew him before that? Like he was his pal? But now why does he want him? What does he have that he wants? Huh. So confusing. Okay, I am now on chapter 73, so we got some catching up to do. First things first, Kaladin can no longer use Stormlight anymore? But I guess only when Syl isn't there, he can't use it anymore. So pretty much all of his power comes from Syl. Huh. And they're kind of in a weird position right now because she's like, you gave your word to two different people, and that's not possible. Deuces! And he's like, what? So that's the thing. Moash's eyes did lighten up. Interesting that that's a real thing. And he did say, you know, I know what you did for me. You're my captain forever. I'm glad that he said that, but I'm still saying. I did love the scene with Shallan talking to Kaladin and basically saying, like, stop being a dick to Adolin. Like, he's actually a really nice person. You're just being awful. I thought that was pretty good. When the bridge was looking like it was, you know, someone's pulling the kill switch on it, the fact that Kaladin immediately started, like, running toward it, and Adolin saw him running and immediately started running with him, I love that. That is so good. There was not even words. He just saw Kaladin spring into action, was like, shit, okay, me too. Love it. But bridge collapsed. Bunch of people died. But Kaladin wakes up and he's with Shallan, and they're both, like, looking at each other like, how did they survive? They don't talk about it. Although when Kaladin was falling, he heard the screams that sounded exactly like Syl screamed when he touched a shard blade. And they kept mentioning how, like, harrowing that scream is. Makes me think it's important, and also worries me. It did make me laugh that it's those two specifically, and they're arguing so much that they, like, essentially call a chasm fiend, which was craziness, and they're like, oh god, we gotta run, and they get to run. I will say there was a moment where they're talking about, like, oh, Shallan wearing, like, bridge uniform stuff. And then he's like, oh, but you're a woman, and, you know, that'd be too revealing. And then she starts drawing. He goes, oh, are you drawing a picture of yourself? It was a little too childish for me. Just a little bit. Like, that scene there made me think, like, you know, because everyone else looks up to Kaladin so much, and he's this, like, you know, figure that's this honorable kind of badass figure. But that felt a little, I don't know, just a little too childish for me, which is kind of wild to say because I love Wayne so much. But yeah, that just felt a little weird. And then we get a little background on Teft, and his parents were like, I mean, it kind of sounded like they were in a cult. Like, they were all, like, trying to kill themselves because they thought that if you got close to death, then you would unlock your, like, dormant radiant power. And his mom died in some weird, like, saw contraption, and then his dad was executed. And he was like, that's weird. People want to kill themselves and you're going to execute them. How does that make sense? That's a fair point, Teft. And he saw his dad dead when he was, like, really young. That's rough. That is rough. The fact that Dalinar believes that Kaladin is dead, surprising. I mean, I understand because Teft, you know, like, believes now because he knows that Kaladin's a Radiant and, like, this whole thing. But the fact that Dalinar was like, no, he's gone. time to move on. I was like, I mean, I get it. He's a soldier. He's in charge. You gotta do what you gotta do. But no mention of Shallan. That was interesting. So then that happened. Kaladin basically talking shit to Shallan and saying, like, all you light eyes are the same and blah, 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 blah. And Shallan's just like, you know what? I'm sick of this. You are the problem, actually. And listen and blah, blah, blah. And, like, I love that she just, like, read him the riot act because I do feel like it's what he needed. And then he was like, oh, well, you've never been through anything. The moment when Cal looked into her eyes and saw, like, oh, shit, she's actually been through some stuff. And then he felt that connection and even said that, like, she cheered him up the way Tien used to. I love that. I love that so much because I've talked about this, like, in my real life and in work that I've done in the past and stuff. You can tell when another person has, like, been through a lot of shit. You know, like, they have similar scars, and I think that genuinely is what connects all of us. So I thought that was really cool that, you know, Kaladin finally saw someone that also goes through stuff in the same way that he has, similarly, I guess, as far as he's concerned. I just thought that was a really cool, kind of beautiful moment that she was able to kind of lift his spirits. But then right after, she mentioned Adolin, and then it said that the mention of Adolin kind of dampened his mood, and I was like, what? Why? And I was like, are we doing a love triangle type thing between these three? Because I'd rather not. And the chasm feed finds them, and they're like, oh shit, we got to get into a crevice. And they do, and Shallan summoned her shard blade in front of Kaladin and gave it to him to fight the chasm fiend. I never in a million years would have guessed that was going to happen. Insane. But Kaladin, he touched it, and he didn't hear the screams. Very interesting. But he did take it, and that was really cool. And then we got our Jurassic Park moment where Kaladin is, like, staring down this chasm fiend, and Shallan's like, hey, I'm over here. Jurassic Park through and through. So that happened, and then Kaladin, Shallan, she drew Kaladin and then created, like, a decoy, like a shadow clone of him, and then the chasm fiend killed that thing, and he's like, what is that? So that was cool. He did pull the old school, you know, jump into the mouth of the dragon and stab it upwards. It worked. So that's pretty cool. But, so they almost get eaten, and then they're like, the high storm's coming, so it's gonna flood, so we gotta go and, like, make a little kind of cubby in the wall, and it's like, you have a shard blade. But they mentioned that Shallan's shard blade, like, got small. She can, like, control the length of the blade. That is really cool. That's one of the things that, to be completely honest, design-wise, I've not been a fan of through both of these books. Because I'm like, a 6-foot sword? Like, I understand, you know, Final Fantasy, Monster Hunter, shit like that, where the swords are just, like, insane. But for me, I don't know. I'm not crazy about it. So the fact that she could, like, shorten her shard blade, I don't know. I just thought that was really cool. But, yeah, that is a lot that has happened. But we're on chapter 73. So the kids all finally took on their dad, and Shallan poisoned him, and then he was still alive, and she choked him out while singing a lullaby that he used to sing to her? Woo! Respect, Shallan. So I'm making my way through chapter 75, and number one, the chapter before with Kaladin and Shallan, they both, like, came clean. Well, almost. Like 95% clean with each other and just told each other their histories. I never would have guessed that was ever going to happen. But it did, and it was nice. And I like that they got out. I like the entrance when Dalinar heard that he was still alive and, like, just ran and was like, dude. And Shallan was like, we found the chasm fiend. And she's such a good liar. She's so good at it. No wonder Pattern loves her. She's quick. She's quick. Respect. So I really like that. But But Kaladin had a vision while he was down there with the Stormfather, and he said that Kaladin killed Syl. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, that's a bummer. That is a bummer. Don't like that at all. And just what crazy timing that when reunited with Dalinar, he realizes, like, how did you survive? That was a 200-foot fall. There was a high storm. Are you what I've been looking for? And he was. He really was. But now that Syl's gone, it's like, not anymore. I mean, the Stormfather straight up said, "You're never going to ride my winds again," which is, damn. He just got started, and then he lost it. All because he couldn't decide? Or all because he gave his word to two different people? Like, I don't know. The world's complicated, and it seems like Syl doesn't quite grasp that. But also, I don't know. So many of these things are like gray, you know? So it's kind of hard to be like, oh, it's this. Well, actually, it might be this. But anyway, that's wild. We're making progress. Okay, I'm a little into the Taravangian interlude, so we got some catching up to do, but very interesting way to convey the kind of PTSD and like, moment when Adolin was telling Shallan, like, you know, I'm gonna protect you, because that's what her dad used to say to her all the time. She was like, oh, shit, she's like, don't say that, I can protect myself, like, ooh, got a little spicy there. And then the first interlude with Lahan, the Ardent, and there's like a new girl, and she's been there for a year, and now she's training under him, and he's like, oh, we just have a good time around here, and she's like, That entire chapter, I was like, okay, alright, Ardents in Elhokar are, you know, not doing their job, I guess, just having a good time, and Elhokar's wife, the queen, is just like throwing parties, but taking away from poor people, so that's not good. And I was like, okay, I mean, this is fine. But then the chapter ends with the girl, Pei, being like, you know what? I'm going to start some shit. And she went and drew all 10 glyphs for all 10 of the fools, and then wrote a paragraph about how the queen is basically all 10 of the fools, and then she got executed the next day, and then riots happened? That went from 0 to 60 fast. And then it went to an Ashonai interlude, and she's like amassing the army of the Parshendi, and they're like, they know Dalinar's army's coming, so their plan is to just create a high storm, all of them, and just wipe out Dalinar's army. Yikes. But now I'm on the Taravangian interlude, and like, he can control his intelligence, like, by the day. So he has days when he's like really stupid and other days when he's like really intelligent. But why? And for what? That's crazy. That is crazy. Well, here we go. So I finished the interludes. Taravangian absolutely cannot control when he's smart and when he's dumb. But maybe I missed it. If I did miss it, please remind me. If I didn't miss it, don't say anything. But did they explain why this is like a thing that he has to deal with? Because that would suck. That would suck really bad. But he also mentioned like an ancient evil spren. Is he talking about the Night Watcher? Dude, I have so many questions. So, Szeth showed up, and I was like, oh, right, Szeth said that he was going to go back, and he's like, I'm going to get some answers, and maybe I'll kill somebody. And I was like, oh, shit, here we go. And then none of that happened. None of it. Taravangian first was like, oh, shit, Szeth is here. And then was like, oh, yeah, I got your ball, though, so you're not going to do nothing, and you should go kill Dalinar, like I said. And he was like, oh, yeah, okay. So that was pretty anticlimactic. But anyway, so that happened. But then Szeth was like, there's another Surge Binder there. And he's like, what? And then he said, one of the Honor Blades has vanished? What? And Taravangian says that he knows where they are, and that Szeth's people, like, are secretive, and 2 of the Honor Blades, they allow regrowth? I don't understand any of this, because Szeth is the one that cut Kaladin, and then he healed himself with Stormlight, but Kaladin doesn't have a Shard Blade. But he said the Honor Blades are missing. So, like, I am so confused. But then they also said, like, hey, you need to go kill Dalinar and stay away from the other guy. So they're like, we have to keep Szeth away from Kaladin. Like, their survival depends on it. Why? What? And Taravangian is also trying to unite the kingdoms by killing all the other kings, I guess. And he went to this guy and then was like, hey, just so you know, your people are already about me. And he's like, and he got his bastard to like kill him. But yeah, so Taravangian and Dalinar are both trying to unite the kingdoms, but it seems like Taravangian is more like terrified of like an evil spren, whereas Dalinar is afraid of the Voidbringers. But the Voidbringers are the Parshendi that have bonded with like evil spren. I don't know. Oh, and I did start the next chapter, and when Lopen told Cal, like, hey, you know, you should go do your Superman stuff, and he's like, I can't, I lost the ability. I love that he can't lie to Bridge 4. I just think that's really special. But he mentioned that Syl's gone, and Lopen's like, you should just buy her a hat. Made me smile. Especially because Michael Kramer does a similar voice for Lopen that he does for Wayne, and for him to, like, say, oh, just buy her a hat, and it's a little hat, so you should get a discount. And he's like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And then he just said something even more ridiculous. Might have slipped up there a little bit, Brandon. Might have put a little Wayne up in there, you know? But loved it. We're getting close. I've got like this much left, so we'll see what happens. I just finished chapter 76, and listen, I'm currently taking notes right now from like an acting workshop that I took recently, and I'm listening to it, and I had to stop and put my pen down and be like, whoa, Dalinar made Amaram apologize to Kaladin. Oh, beautiful. Listen, I just keep getting more and more reasons to be ride or die for Dalinar. That's my guy. If I have ever doubted him ever, I apologize now. He's right. I support him 100%. He's trying his best. This was a very big deal. And, he totally set up Amaram to lie to him, and he bonded with a different shard blade so that he could threaten him when it was time. Beautiful. I love it. And then he's like, take that cloak off. You're not a Radiant. Incredible. Now, on the other side, the fact that Amaram's reputation is now kind of tarnished. Listen, when somebody has that kind of reputation and it is ruined, they become significantly more dangerous. So that worries me. Also, Moash is on guard duty for the king. Now, granted, I don't like the king. I don't care. But that's going to look really bad for Dalinar and for Kaladin. So, let's see what happens. Okay, I finished it. I have officially finished Words of Radiance. Now, I'm going to end up, like later today, I'm going to end up making 2 videos. I'm going to do one that's way more like hitting moments and beats leading up to, you know, finishing it, because obviously a lot has happened since my last video. And then I'm going to do another video that's like the full review kind of idea. But, whew, I will say this. I enjoyed it. I liked it. There were some moments at the end that I was very excited about. Specifically, Adolin stabbing Sadeas in the eye. That was awesome. The fact that Dalinar is now a Radiant. Cool. He's a bondsmith. I like that. Yasna's still alive. Did not see that coming at all. All that's awesome. I love all of that. And I'll get into it more in the videos later today. I will say, I realized that I mentioned in the last video that there may be some stuff that'll disappoint you guys. And how do I put this? Ultimately, and again, I'll get into it. Ultimately, there were things that I think I would have been way more excited about and way more invested in had I not known stuff that weren't direct spoilers, but ended up being direct spoilers. So I wasn't able to like fully invest and enjoy these like kind of crazy moments because the stakes weren't there, because I knew things that I had, gotten from the internet, unfortunately. Yeah. So look for that. This is such a weird video. I finished it. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'm excited to like really give it the time that it needs. So this is what you get now. By the end of Saturday, there'll be 2 videos. They're most likely going to be very long. That's just, beats to catch up on everything that I haven't talked about yet, and also to give the full review. And then I start Edge Dancer this weekend, which is super exciting. So, look out for those. We did it. Okay, so the last time we talked about stuff that was happening was chapter 76, which was like 20 chapters ago. So here's some stuff that was pretty wild. So Shallan showed Dalinar her powers before Kaladin, which I didn't see that coming. That was pretty wild. Relaine Shen was a spy for like 3 years? I respect that. I respect that a lot. So that happened. Shallan leading Dalinar and his army to Urithiru. Pretty cool. The king asked Kaladin how to be a hero. Again, never would have seen any of this happen. I'll be honest with you. When the king was like, everyone thinks you're a hero and everyone thinks I'm a joke, blah, blah, blah. I'll be completely honest. Did not feel bad for him at all. I just didn't. Dalinar giving his battle speech was pretty cool. I love Dalinar. You guys know that. It wasn't up to Elend level, but it was still pretty good. Zayel turning the courtyard into a bath. Love it. Ridiculous, and I love it. And I love that he was like, hey, Kaladin, you just need to do the thing that you can live with afterwards. Which, honestly, fantastic advice. But then Kaladin had the realization that Elhokar is Dalinar's Tien. So he's like, damn. I gotta protect him. Which, honestly, made me understand. Still not a big fan of the king, but when you put it that way, it makes sense. I don't want him to die because that would suck for Dalinar. Adolin's horse dying was rough. That sucked real bad. Then Moash and Graves show up to kill the king, and he's like completely passed out drunk, and they fought Kaladin. Like, Moash straight up like broke ribs and like attacked him and like tried to kill Cal. Damn. Listen, I've been saying for a while that I got a bad feeling about Moash, but that was a bit. Adolin killing Parshendi, just like slaughtering them, and they were like shook out of it just in time to be killed, and he felt really bad about it. And then Eshonai showed up and he fought her. I was like, oh shit. Shallan found Urithiru. Pretty cool. What else was there? Adolin headbutted Eshonai off of like a cliff, just like, ugh, and she went flying, and then he almost went flying after her, but the 2 bridgemen saved him, and they're like, oh, you're just like a fat prince. Like, we've been carrying bridges. This is nothing. I love that. But I didn't get to enjoy the moment because Szeth showed up immediately, and I was like, oh no. So then Szeth beat Adolin, and then he went to his real target, Dalinar, and Dalinar fought Szeth again. Pretty good. And the fact that Adolin, being as good as he is, said that he is a child compared to Szeth, that is nuts. That is crazy. But then Szeth fights Dalinar, and so this is the kind of thing that I alluded to in the previous videos. This fight would have been so much more intense, and like I'd be way more invested in it if I didn't know that all of these people survive. You know what I mean? Like, prior to this, people mentioning that, like, oh, this character in this book is great, or this character's backstory comes out then, blah blah blah. I didn't think about it too much. I was like, oh, okay, cool, you know. But this fight specifically, I didn't get excited or like anything about it because I knew Adolin, Dalinar, Kaladin, Zeph, I knew all of them survived this. So like, I think about it now that if I didn't know Dalinar survived, when Zeph lashed him into the sky, I would have been panicking. When Zeph showed up to Adolin, I would have been like, oh shit, are they going to kill Adolin? I felt none of those things because I knew they all survived. So that was kind of a bummer, I'm not going to lie. But anyway, so Dalinar gets, you know, sent to space. Kaladin grabs him, and then Kaladin does his whole, like, you know, superhero landing. And the fact that he maintained his oath to the king, Syl showed up. And Syl's like, all right, let's do this. And then Kaladin and Zeth have this, like, chronicle fight in the clouds. And Syl is the Shard Blade for Kaladin, which is pretty wild. It's like the Shard Blades are the Spren. So, like, and then Syl can turn into stuff. So she's like a sword, and then she's a spear, and then she's a shield. I was like, this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. I'm down with this. And the fact that Zeth, like, can't acknowledge that Kaladin is a Radiant because he's like, no, they said I was wrong. They said I was a liar. I am truthless. I am truthless. And he's like, no, you're not. Like, I'm a Radiant, dude. But then Shallan touched Adolin's Shard Blade and heard the screams, which was very interesting. But Pattern is her blade, which, that's pretty cool. But then Syl said that Shard Blades are dead Spren, and Zeth's Shard Blade is actually an Honor Blade, which is different. And so Honor gave the blades to the Heralds, and the Spren imitated them to create Shard Blades. And an Honor Blade automatically turns someone into a Windrunner, and Zeth, like, immediately was like, I don't care. Unbonded, threw himself into the storms, donezo. But Kaladin's a light eyes now. He's got, like, a light blue eyes. I love that he hid the king with the Lopen and his cousins, and the Lopen's mom is just like, you're not a king in my house, dude. That was... And then the Lopen is just, like, staring at this sphere, and he's like, all right, and it works, and his arm starts to grow back. That was cool. But Moash and Graves are still alive, and Moash kind of feels bad, which he should. I'm wondering, the men that Yasna killed, were they Ghostbloods? Because the Ghostbloods came to Shallan, and they were like, she murdered a lot of us too. And I was like, were they? And then they were saying, let Shallan be a Radiant, let Vale still be a Ghostblood. So they're still super interested in her, which is interesting. And then Shallan's mom. Shallan's mom tried to kill her. And Shallan stopped her with the Shard Blade. And then her dad went kind of crazy and terrible because he lived with the fact that everyone thought he did it, but he didn't. But he was actually protecting Shallan. But then Shallan killed him with the necklace that he gave her. That was nuts. And then Amaram calls himself a son of honor, which is what the Stormfather called Kaladin and Dalinar. And Amaram went to Taln and called him the Herald of War? And he tried to break him out of jail. But then Mraize, the Ghostblood, was like shooting the dart at Amaram, and Taln stopped it. So that's interesting. Why did Taln save Amaram? I don't know what's up with that. And then Darkness saved Zeth, brought him back to life, and he was like, you know what? Oh, his name is Nin. And Nin is actually the Herald of Justice. So there's another Herald walking around out there like Taln, which is very interesting. And he had Nightblood and gave it to Zeth, which I will say, I accidentally spoiled myself because I accidentally looked up the like new Mistborn RPG thing coming up, and on the cover I saw Zeth and he was holding Nightblood, and I'm like, shit. Okay, so that was on me. That was on me. And Dalinar's army goes through the portal, makes it to Urithiru. They're doing the Fabrial thing with all their blades and shit. The Stormfather is Honor's Spren that's still around, And he bonded with Dalinar, which is cool, but he's like, you're not going to get a shard blade, you're not getting anything else, you're just going to have to lead, which was pretty neat. And then Adolin stabs Sadeas in the eye. Perfect. And then Dalinar's like, this odium guy's a problem, I'm going to bring him down. Love that. A god that kills other gods, and Dalinar's like, I don't care, let's do this. Avengers assemble. Great. And Renarin is also a Radiant, and he's a truth watcher. So he was having like visions, and he heard the screams, and that's why he was panicking. Crazy. I wonder how Adolin's gonna feel about this, that his dad and his brother are both Radiants, and his fiance, but he's not. And so Cal is going to save his parents. Dalinar's like, is what it is. Yasna's still alive, and she's an else caller. And Hoyd mentioned Tenevast, and he said that he like bought him drinks or whatever. Yeah, craziness. Yeah, full review coming later today. Okay, it is official. I have finished the Words of Radiance, and we're gonna talk about it. I have so much to say, and have felt so many things on this journey. And you can watch the videos that I've already posted. But this is the full review. So here's kind of like the overarching thoughts, questions, favorite moments. Here's where I'm at. I did enjoy it. I liked it a lot. I liked it better than Way of Kings. But they're so, like, these books are so long and so big that I already know I've forgotten a significant portion of this already. And, you know, that's a me problem. But this was a wild ride. By far, my favorite scene, section, part of the Stormlight Archive so far in both books is the duel. The duel with Adolin and Kaladin and Renarin versus the other assholes that I refuse to remember their names. That was so good. I loved every part of that. I was surprised. I was excited. And there was so much going on as well, and different things that I'm still like kind of questioning about, but loved it. I was shocked when Yasna got killed. I was even more shocked when she came back at the end, and she's burned, which was interesting. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. But I really enjoyed all the Yasna stuff. The lift interlude, I actually really liked the lift interlude, like a lot. Like I like the Zeth stuff too, but the lift one, because it had who I now know is called Nin, feels pretty significant. And Nin turned out to be one of the heralds, which is insane. And he like is trying to stop the Radiance because he was like, I need to stop what you are to lift. And mind you, this is a 13-year-old girl, and he's like breaking her ribs with a cudgel and all kinds of shit. But she was able to bring her friend back to life, which is kind of wild. I liked Shallan and the Ghost Bloods and all that stuff. That was cool. Adolin imprisoning himself alongside Kaladin, I thought was great. Mind you, of course, not a one-to-one, because Adolin, you know, has his span reed in there, and he's got water and food and stuff. He just like locked himself in the jail, you know, in solidarity with our boy Cal. I thought that was great. Cal and Shallan in the chasms was very cool. The fact that they both confided in each other because they've both done some pretty crazy shit. And they were kind of able to bond in that way, I thought was really cool and unexpected. Shallan being the one that killed her dad and her mom. Oh shit, I just put that together. Woo! Yeah, she killed both her parents. Ooh! Whoa. Anyway, so that happened. Killed her mom and her mom's boyfriend, and then, because they tried to kill her first, and then her dad went crazy. He was probably an asshole before then, right? Anyway, so she killed her dad by poisoning him, and then choking him out with the necklace that he bought her. Ooh. Probably my second favorite moment outside of the duel is Dalinar making Amaram apologize to Kaladin, because the switch that Brandon Sanderson did where he like saw Amaram was like, it's time for an apology, and he makes you think that he's gonna make Kaladin try and bury the hatchet, but no, he made Amaram do it. Beautiful. Love that. Yeah, Yasna's back. The fact that the Stormfather is now Dalinar's spren, but he's not giving him like any weapons or shards or anything. But he's like, yeah, okay, sure, you bullied me into it. So that, I'm interested to see where that goes. Because Dalinar this entire time has been having these visions and he didn't know what to do with them. And, he's just trying his best out here. And he's like trying to find the Radiance only to become one. And the leader of them. That's pretty great. Questions that I'm left with now, though, is somebody mentioned that the Night Watcher is the mother of the Spren. So I don't know what that is. Because then I also found out that the Stormfather is like leftover honor Spren. This Spren stuff is never going to sink into my brain. I've already accepted it. I have no idea what any of it means. I'm just trying my best, and we'll see what happens. But Nin also has a Spren, I think, that can take other people's Stormlight, because he took away Lift's powers, which is terrifying. So that happened. I'm curious. I'm very curious as to how Shallan got her Shard Blade, because I don't think it's been explained. I think I would remember if it had. Because she's had a Shard Blade since her parents. So, yeah. What's up with that? Also, Taravangian knows where the Honor Blades are. They're like with the Shin, like Szeth's people. How does he know that? And what is he doing with that information? I don't know. I'm curious also, like, does being bonded to a Spren change anything when it comes to the Night Watcher's curses, right? Because Lift, they said that she visited the old magic, which I'm assuming means she went to the Night Watcher, and she got, her boon and her curse. And we know Dalinar, we don't know what his boon is because he won't say anything about it, but we know his curse is that basically he had his wife erased from his memory. Can't hear her name, doesn't remember what she looks like, doesn't remember her name, all of that. So I'm curious if the Night Watcher is the mother of the Spren, but now Dalinar is bonded with the Stormfather. Is that gonna, take away the curse? Is that how that works? But maybe not, because Lift is bonded with Wendell. And what is Lift's curse? Do I know that? Anyway, overall, I liked it. I liked it better than The Way of Kings. It's still a lot for me to try and, digest and remember. I'm still Team Dalinar all day, every day. I love that guy. I mentioned in the last video that the final battle didn't have the emotional stakes that I wish it had, because I knew that all of the characters, or I had assumed that all of the characters were still alive in the future. So at no point did I think Dalinar, Szeth, Adolin, or Kaladin were going to die. At any point. I was like, yeah, they're going to make it through this. They're going to make it through this. Where with the duel, I didn't know at the time if Adolin was going to move on. And also, I didn't know if Adolin was going to be crippled or not. So I was like, oh shit, the stakes felt very real in the duel. But I think maybe the other thing is, with TikTok, and this is not, I'm not complaining, it's just a thing. TikTok, puts videos sometimes on the For You page. So you get people that don't necessarily follow you that are just excited to talk about, and they don't really know, and they get excited. So I'm not blaming them at all. But it did do something to me where I was more just kind of watching it as opposed to being invested, which was why I didn't do any reaction videos during the fight, because I didn't react during the fight. And I'm not going to fake any of that, to be like, oh, I'm really excited now. It's no. Everything I ever post on here is 100% authentic. I'm going through it as it is recording. All of that to say, yes, I enjoyed it. I'm excited. I have a lot of questions. I know I'm going to forget a lot of stuff. Yeah, it was good. It was good. I liked it better than Way of Kings. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm really excited for Edge Dancer, which is next. And I already have it. I'm starting that tonight. I'm super excited about it. So yeah, we'll see where this goes. I'm pumped. I'm excited to see what happens next, because I'm also not entirely clear what is happening. Because in the first book, was a whole lot of build up to stuff. And then the second book is it's building up to this, Parshendi big battle, the Everstorm with, the Stormfather and Odium, and the Everstorm with Odium. And now it's Odium is coming and he's killed gods already. So how are you going to stop him? I have no idea. And are we ever going to meet Odium in the way that we met Ruin and Preservation? And also, if Odium is able to kill other gods, it would stand to reason that he's also able to be killed. But can he only be killed by... Well, no. I don't know. It's so much. It's so much. And I like it. But I also know half of this stuff went in and out. As hard as I have tried, my ADD just does not cooperate most of the time. So I've heard a lot of people say, you know, Stormlight is big and it's a lot to take in. And that, I found that to be true. But some people said if you want to like take a break in between and whatever, I'm excited for Edge Dancer, something much smaller. And it's about Lift, who I already love, to see how... to see what that story is about. Because I know nothing about it other than it's about Lift. And it's called Edge Dancer, which she is, apparently. So I'm pumped. It's going to be good. Words of Radiance, thumbs up. And on to the next one.